Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a question that sounds a little wild, but is actually super fascinating. Homo sapiens. Did humans evolve backwards? I know, right? It sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie, a plotline you'd expect from a blockbuster. But let's explore this intriguing concept together. Now, before we get too deep into the nitty-gritty, let's clear something up right away. Something fundamental about the very nature of evolution itself. The popular, often misunderstood idea of reverse evolution or devolution, as some people incorrectly call, it is mostly a big misunderstanding of how evolution actually works. It's a common misconception, one that often pops up in casual discussions. Think of it this way. Evolution isn't a rigid linear ladder. We're constantly climbing, always moving strictly up to some predetermined, better or more advanced form. Instead, it's much more like a sprawling, incredibly complex and constantly branching tree, with countless changes happening all the time, in all sorts of diverse directions. There isn't a single ultimate goal or a finish line that species are striving to reach. It's simply the continuous dynamic process of change, in the heritable characteristics of biological populations over successive generations, driven by environmental pressures and genetic variation. But despite this fundamental understanding, that doesn't stop some really interesting and sometimes quite pseudoscientific claims from popping up in various corners of the internet and even popular culture. There are folks out there who genuinely believe that the accepted story of human evolution, the narrative we've all been taught in schools and read in textbooks, is largely, well, utter nonsense. They even go so far as to argue quite vehemently that archaeologists and paleontologists might sometimes, maybe, manipulate archaeological and fossil evidence to fit a preordained outcome, a narrative they've already decided upon. It's a remarkably bold claim, one that often lacks substantial supporting evidence, and certainly doesn't hold up to rigorous scientific scrutiny. But it's definitely a popular talking point among certain, often skeptical circles. Then there's this truly wild and somewhat alarmist notion that humans are currently in a rather troubling genetic recession. Can you even imagine such a scenario playing out? The underlying idea here is that, due to various modern pressures, we could potentially regress as a species, perhaps even falling behind chimpanzees in certain biological capacities. Now, most reputable scientists and evolutionary biologists would quickly tell you that this particular idea is probably being presented satirically, as in it's a humorous exaggeration, a wry joke, or an over-the-top scenario, intended to make a critical point about our current societal or biological state, rather than a serious, empirically backed scientific prediction. But it does make you pause and think, doesn't it, about the fragility of our perceived evolutionary progress? Another incredibly interesting hypothesis, frequently debated and discussed, suggests that humans are evolving too slowly to effectively keep pace with our super-fast, hyper-modern, and increasingly industrialized environment. The core argument here is that this profound mismatch, this significant gap between our biological adaptations and our rapidly changing surroundings, could be leading to a host of concerning issues. These include things like decreased fertility rates, impaired immune system function, and even noticeable declines in cognitive abilities, not to mention a pervasive and ever-increasing level of stress in daily life. This isn't exactly reverse evolution in the traditional pseudoscientific sense, but it's a compelling hypothesis about a significant environmental mismatch that certainly gets many experts and laypeople alike talking extensively about potential challenges to our species' future viability and well-being. But let's be super clear on this crucial point. Evolution is an undeniably ongoing and ceaseless process. Humans are absolutely, unequivocally still evolving. We are constantly adapting to new and changing environments, to the diverse diets we consume across different cultures, and even to new diseases and pathogens that emerge regularly. Think about it for a moment. Remarkable adaptations to high altitudes, found in populations living in mountainous regions, the widespread lactose tolerance observed in populations that historically consumed dairy products, and genetic resistance to certain infectious diseases are all fantastic, real-world examples of human evolution happening right here, right now, in our contemporary world. It's not always super dramatic or instantly noticeable, but it's undoubtedly happening all around us. And that idea some people mistakenly have about a sudden, dramatic, and instantaneous evolutionary spurt in brain size, that particular notion has been thoroughly and decisively Debunked by extensive scientific research, robust evidence clearly shows that human brain growth occurred gradually and incrementally over millions of years, progressing steadily within each hominin species, rather than in sudden, inexplicable, or rapid jumps. So, while a certain level of skepticism about evolution occasionally exists in the broader public, it often stems from non-scientific beliefs, cultural narratives, or personal interpretations, rather than from actual empirical scientific evidence. The overwhelming consensus within the global scientific community is that evolution is an incredibly robust, profoundly well-supported and continuously validated scientific theory. Now, what about some of those physical changes in humans that sometimes make us scratch our heads in wonder or confusion? Have you ever given thought to how we've lost most of our dense body hair, making us incredibly vulnerable to low temperatures, compared to our primate relatives? Or how our jaws have become significantly shorter and less robust, which has drastically reduced our biting power over millennia? And here's a real head-scratcher. A truly puzzling biological trade-off: the incredibly difficult and often dangerous childbirth experiences that human females endure are frequently seen as a significant biological disadvantage when you compare it to the relatively easier birthing processes of other primates. Plus, did you know that modern humans' jaws are actually continuing to shrink in size? These are all very real evolutionary changes and physiological developments that have occurred in our lineage. But they aren't necessarily backwards in the specific loaded sense of devolution. They're just changes, the result of a long, complex, and often unpredictable evolutionary journey. But wait, there's another fascinating, albeit sometimes ethically concerning avenue that significantly impacts discussions about human evolution: the concept of transhumanism. This is the groundbreaking and potentially paradigm-shifting idea of enhancing fundamental human capabilities, both physical and cognitive, through the strategic application of advanced technology, genetic engineering, and artificial intelligence. While it's definitely not reverse evolution, it profoundly represents a significant and potentially transformative alteration of the very human condition. Think about genetic manipulation, for example, the ability to directly edit our own genetic code. It raises some incredibly serious and complex ethical concerns about potentially creating a super race of genetically engineered individuals and the inevitable discrimination, inequality, and social stratification that could tragically follow such developments. It's an incredibly complex, multifaceted topic with colossal implications for our future as a species and for the very definition of what it means to be human. And of course, our ongoing scientific understanding of human origins is always evolving. Pun absolutely intended. New fossil discoveries, like remarkable findings in East Africa or new analyses of ancient DNA, are constantly reshaping and refining what we know about early human diversity and the complex tapestry of our ancestral past. Take the famous little foot fossil, for instance, a remarkably complete Australopithecine skeleton discovered in South Africa. It might represent an entirely new species of human ancestor, challenging previous classifications. Plus, cutting-edge genetic research now strongly suggests that modern humans didn't simply evolve from a single, isolated ancestral group in one specific part of Africa, but rather from multiple interconnected and interacting populations spread across the vast African continent. How incredibly cool and complex is that new understanding? So, in a nutshell, while the whole concept of humans evolving backwards is mostly considered pseudoscientific and lacks true empirical support, what's undeniably true and scientifically robust is that humans are still very much evolving, adapting, and changing. New discoveries are constantly refining our understanding of our own origins, which is an incredibly exciting and dynamic field of study. And perhaps the more relevant and pressing discussion, moving forward into the 21st century and beyond, revolves around the profound ethical implications of intentionally altering human biology and fundamental human nature through advanced technology. What do you think about all this? Are we as a species truly evolving, perhaps stagnating in certain aspects? Or is something else entirely at play in our evolutionary journey? Let us know your thoughts and insights in the comments section below. Don't forget to like this video if you found it informative and thought-provoking. Subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into science and history. See you next time.